You're not going to be on YouTube. I hope you're going to take a look at Spot. She's a master teacher, so she's has her own classroom.
She used to work at college.
So she just comes in class.
And look, somebody asked about my name because I know it sounds kind of weird.
Miss Vaughn?
Yeah.
Miss Vaughn?
It's fine.
Not
Not fine. I'm not your backbone. Okay. Not fun. I'm not like a sphere. Spook. Spook. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started for today. I need you ready to learn. You show me you're ready to learn by sitting up straight. I don't care if you're sitting forward or a little bit sideways, so you can see me either way is fine. I do care that I have your eyes, and I do care that your back is not to me. Is that understood? Okay, I thought I got too old for a second and my ears quit working. Take off your book sack. We're gonna be here for about an hour, so like plan to stay. If you have a reason that you've already discussed with your teacher, that's fine. Come on, Johnny, I think you're in the dive. Okay, so it's our first guidebooks lesson here in Gonzales Middle. But if you went to Pecan Grove, Carver Primary, or Gonzales Primary, you worked in the guidebooks before, okay? So this is not new to you as much as it is new to your teacher. And I'm in here today just helping out, okay? So take a look at our lesson title. Take a minute, read it to yourself. Read it out loud for me. 3, 2, 1.
Courage of famous failures.
Okay, so if I'm predicting what our lesson's going to be about today, give me one word. Hands up if you got a word. Turn and tell your shoulder partner. What's our word?
Failures.
Woo! I heard it loud and proud. Failure. Who wants to talk about failure?
Nobody.
I get uncomfortable when I think about failure. I don't know about you. But I also see this word, courage. So now my brain's making some connections. I think today we might learn about
People who had the courage to, people who like told them that they couldn't make it, but they had the courage to keep going.
or maybe they failed and kept going anyway. Yes, Cameron.
Maybe like I predict that courage and resilience. I would think that reducing courage and failures. Maybe it's like maybe that they had a famous failure and it was like very public and they had the courage to write something about it.
Ooh, when you get embarrassed or fail in front of other people, isn't that the worst? It takes courage to overcome something like that, to deal with it, to live with it, to speak about it, and to overcome it. Okay, excellent. You guys took just the title of the lesson and started making some predictions. That's going to help activate our thinking for today. Since we're starting a unit, I want you guys to understand what this unit's going to be about, and you're already thinking in that direction. By the end of this unit, we will read a variety of texts, that means a lot of different texts, about the role of failure in success. Now, failure and success, in my brain, they seem like opposites, right? But it says failure has a role or a part to play in helping you be successful.
Because if you fail, then that failing, like let's say you fail to do something wrong and you need that, like if you're making an experiment and you fail to do it, maybe you can go back to your old experiment, think about what like happened.
Who agrees with Isidro's thinking? You can use failure to help you think about what happened. Okay, good. Now, Isidro's doing a lot of thinking out loud, and I want to make sure that as we go through the lesson, you're doing that same kind of thinking in your brain. Okay, I'm not up here talking because I like the sound of my voice. I actually hate the sound of my voice, but I want to engage you in thinking. So you will learn about people's different ideas about what it takes to be successful, including hard work, deliberate practice, and the ability to learn from failures and persevere. Does anybody know what persevere means? Yes, ma'am.
It's like keep going.
Keep going. That's it. When you fail, you have to keep going, right? Because you haven't achieved your goal yet. So speaking of goals, you have 3 main goals for this unit, okay? And since you are familiar with guidebooks, you know that you're always going to have a cold read task, right? That checks your progress on reading standards. You know you're going to have a culminating writing task that you're going to have to do some writing, and you're going to do an extension task that's a little bit different and quirky. Don't be bored with it, Dalen. We got to write, but it's going to be okay. It's supported. So by the end of the unit, not today, but all the work we do is going to lead us to this. So everything we do every day is important, right? Because it helps us reach this goal. Write a compare and contrast essay about how a central idea in Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement address and J.K. Rowling's Harvard commencement address is introduced and elaborated. Okay, I don't know about you, but from where I sit, that sounds kind of scary, right? You're not expected to even understand this today. When do you need to understand this by? The end of the unit. So it makes it important for you to pay attention every single day so that when it's time to do this, you've got all the pieces to help you get there. Okay? This one's kind of like fun to me. You're going to emulate Steve Jobs' commencement address by writing a research-based first-person address about how a person you studied overcame failure. Okay? So let's say one of the people who failed a lot was an inventor. His name is Thomas Edison. He invented the light bulb, right? Okay. He made a lot of bad light bulbs before he made a good one. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to write pretending like you're Thomas Edison or another person who's experienced failure, and you're going to give a speech from their point of view. It's going to be really cool. And we're also going to spend time reading, discussing, and writing about text. Now I want to take a minute to show you these goals are on the board. So whenever the screen is not down, you can always remind yourself what we're working towards, okay? All right. So here's how we're going to get through today's lesson. Actually, before we do that, let's come to our learning target for today. Everybody see right here, I can? Repeat after me. I can.
I can.
Analyze an author's words.
Analyze an author's words.
To make inferences.
To make inferences.
Supported by relevant text evidence.
Supported by relevant text evidence.
Inferencing should not be a new skill to you. Okay? Who's heard the word inferences before? And my daughter Lily, she's in 5th grade, and that's one of her spelling words this week, inference. All right, Dalen, come here. Come here, Dalen. We're going to make an inference right now in real life. All right. So I want you to make an inference on how Dalen is feeling. Turn and tell your partner. Turn and tell your shoulder partner. If you don't have a shoulder partner, Landon, turn forward. Jan, you turn forward. Alright. Hands up. Who did anybody tell you how Dalen was feeling?
No.
But you have some ideas, right? Dalen gave you some clues, some evidence about how he was feeling. You might have been looking at this mug right here, right? You might be looking at his body language, his posture. Okay? Let's share.
Excuse me, Miss Jordan?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you please send out a couple of computers that we loaned you for testing, please, to the library? We need to use them.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's make an inference on how does Dalen feel. Assume the position. There you go. Landon.
Bored.
Who agrees that bored might make sense? Even if it's not what you said. He looks kind of bored up here. What makes you say that? Okay. All right, Johnny, what you thinking?
I'm thinking that he's like kind of being chill and he's tired maybe.
Oh, he might be kind of like, just kind of like blah.
You guys see that his eyes are like kind of closed a little
Look
bit.
at those eyes are kind of closed. Angel? Okay, so bored, tired, those are different things, but they both different?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's really, and he don't want to see these teachers anymore. He just want to go home. I want to see this fun. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. I heard somebody say mad. Was that you? Okay. Austin said mad. If I look at his face, could I maybe infer that he's mad?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want you to see with our target today is you may come up with a little bit different sounding answer than people around you. Is that okay with making inferences? Yes. What's not okay about making inferences, thank you, my beautiful model. What's not okay about making inferences would be to say something totally not related to the evidence you see. So if I said, man, Dalen is so excited to stand up here and be my helper, would that be a relevant inference? No. So one of our criteria for mastery for inferences is that it has to be reasonable based on evidence. Okay? And so we'll remember Mad Dalen when we get to that. Okay? I told him, I said, Dalen, make a mad face. And he goes, well, that's what I always look like. I said, that's exactly why I picked you. Okay? So, in order to help us make inferences today, using that evidence, we're going to watch a video about some famous failures. We're going to read Steve Jobs' commencement address. And I keep saying that word commencement address. All that means is like the speech that somebody gives at a graduation. Who's been to a graduation? There's usually a speaker. Sometimes it's a student. Sometimes it's a celebrity. When you get to college, they have celebrity speakers, hands down. Commencement address is just a fancy pants way of saying a graduation speech. Okay? We're going to engage in some discussions about how failures lead to success, which is exactly what some of you predicted our lesson would be about. Okay? So today, we're going to use Steve Jobs' commencement speech. And if you don't know who Steve Jobs is, by the time he finishes his speech, you'll know. Okay. So we're going to start out by watching this video, Courage of Famous Failures. Okay, and we're actually going to watch it twice. The first time we watch it, I want you to just take it in. See who we are talking about and how it relates to failure and success. What are you watching for? Failure and success, and then what else? Who? The people who have experienced failure and success. Who in failure and success? Oprah Winfrey, Albert Einstein, does the word failure come to your mind?
No.
They're famous, okay? They have overcome all of their failures, but at some point in their life, there was somebody who told them, you weren't good enough. Walt Disney, y'all, I love Disney, okay? Somebody told him he had no imagination. What?
And then he made Mickey Mouse.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I told you we're gonna watch it again, but we're gonna watch it again for the ability to be able to discuss this question. How did the individuals in the video overcome challenges to become successful? Okay, so our purpose for watching again is to answer this question. And before we do that, if you've been around me for a minute, you know that when we turn and talk with partners, it's very important to me that we're engaging in the thinking and learning that's supposed to be happening. How many of you like to write down answers? You love to just write papers and essays and explain your thinking and writing all the time? No. How many of you it's easier to answer when you get to talk about it first? Just kind of get your ideas out. Exactly. So when we talk to one another in the classroom, it has a purpose. It's a chance for us to clean up our thinking before we have to stop and write it down, right? Because we also have to write too. So I have 3 goals for us while we're talking to one another that I fully expect you to engage in. And we're going to be doing some practice by going back and looking at the video and talking about that question. How do the individuals overcome challenges to be successful? Okay? So our first goal when we're talking to one another, guys, is for you to clearly express your ideas through speaking. You get better at expressing your ideas by practice. And your partner is going to give you feedback to help you be at your best level. Okay? If I'm the speaker, my job is to think and use evidence to guide my thinking. Okay? I'm not just going to talk off the wall at anything. I need to answer the question being asked. As a listener, you need to hear what they have to say. Okay? You should be able to restate or summarize their answer. For example, Jalen, what's your favorite thing to eat?
Wings.
Wings. Okay, Jalen, why do you like wings? Give me some evidence. That's a weird question. They're good. What makes them good? The sauce, the flavors, the spice, the juicy, the crunchy. All the above. Oh, I love wings. Okay. So if I listen to Jalen's response, I should be able to recap what he said or summarize it. Now I don't have to say it exactly like Jalen. I can say it in my own words. So watch me recap Jalen's answer. Jalen, I heard you say that wings are your favorite food. You like them because they're good and they come in all different flavors. Okay? Y'all see that? Sorry. All right, number 2. You guys should be able to support your thinking with evidence. You've been doing this since 3rd grade. This is nothing new, okay? So when you support your answer with evidence, as a speaker, you might say something like, in the text I read. Are we working from a text today? What are we working from? So what could you say instead? According to the video, or in the video I saw. Very good. As a listener, if your partner is supposed to be giving you evidence and they don't, ask them, what evidence supports your answer? Or just like I asked Jalen a second ago, what made you say that? It's got to be based on something, okay? And goal 3, that you guys can extend or challenge the ideas of others. That can be very simple. You could choose to agree or disagree with what they said, okay? And then you give your reason why. Or you could challenge them, okay? So like say Jalen told me his favorite food was wings. I'm saying, oh man, I disagree. My favorite food is macaroni and cheese because it's so smooth and creamy, okay? So we can disagree with each other. Is that okay? Yeah, he has his reasons and his opinions, and I have mine, right? Sometimes somebody might change your thinking. Like Isidro might say something so wonderful that I'm like, wasn't thinking like that before, Isidro. At first I thought that failure was a bad thing. But when you showed me that maybe people could learn from their failures, my thinking changed. Oh, you're so powerful. Okay? And that's the thing, guys. You are powerful. Your ideas are powerful, and they could influence others. Okay? So we want to be responsible speakers and listeners. Do we understand my expectations for accountable talk? Okay? So let's practice. All right. If you sit closer to me, so that's going to be Cameron, Dalen, Cavis, Akirian, Isidro, Landon, Anaya, Sierra, and Jordan. You guys are going to be partner A. Raise your hand if you're partner A. Okay, hands down. If I did not call your name, you're partner B. Raise your hand if you're partner B. Everybody knows their role. Okay, partner A. Your job for this first video clip that we watch is to tell how did the individual overcome challenges to be successful. Partner B, your job is to listen. Any questions? All right, let's go. Oops. I'm gonna tell you when to start watching partner A so you can think. Partner A, start watching. I keep using the controls and it's not working. Winston Churchill. Okay, partner A, think. How did Winston Churchill overcome failure to get to success? 30 seconds think time. Give me thumbs up when you're ready to answer, partner A. Look at his title, British Prime Minister. That's almost like being the president. Okay, it's a political title. Partner A, how did Winston Churchill overcome his failure to be a success? Turn and tell partner B. All right, eyes on me, please. Who can tell me what their partner said? Let's see who was being a good listener. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Great job being able to summarize your partner's thinking. Dalen, great job being a thinker. Go ahead and write your name on your bugs. Oh, now you want to share? You see the bugs. Okay. All right. Let's hear. What did your partner say?
He said that he went to school and he wasn't doing very great, and then he got a job and was open to his family.
Okay. Good thinking. Good listening. Okay, we're gonna do another one. All right. Get ready. Now, partner B. You're gonna watch the next clip, and you're gonna see how did the person overcome failure to lead to success. Ready? Okay, I'm gonna play it one more time. You need to see it one more time. She plays a great witch. Okay, part of B. Think time. Think time. Eyes on me, please. During think time, brains are moving, mouths are not. Got it? 10 more seconds of think time. Thumbs up when you're ready. All right, B, your turn to share. A, your turn to listen. I like how you extended her answer. You listened to what she said because both of y'all had to take a turn to talk. Good job. All right, back to me. Eyes on me, please. I need your eyes, Johnny. I need you sitting up. If I taught in that class, you could have an A, but this is ELA. All right, so, ready? Who said something interesting? Who can repeat what their partner said? Cameron.
He said that they used to, the directors call her ugly, and that she was too ugly to act. And he also said that she was wrong, and she wanted to be
Okay. Good thinking, good listening. Cedra, what'd your partner say?
my partner said that they told her that she was too ugly to be a famous actress, but then as she started to get older, she realized that those people don't matter to her. And now she wanted to break out of
Okay. All right. For time's sake, we're going to move on. If you haven't earned a buck, I'm going to be watching you as the lesson progresses to see if we can pass them out for some other reason, okay? There are other ways to be a good listener besides with your partner. You can listen with me. You can listen and participate in other ways. Okay, so what we just did is we thought about how did people in the video overcome challenges to become successful. That's our big question we're trying to answer today, but we're trying to answer that question about this man, Steve Jobs, okay? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to play his speech for you, okay? His speech is long. It's about 15 minutes. And if you're like me, if you have to listen to a speech for 15 minutes and not see the words, my brain is gonna swirl all over the place. So, we have copies of the speech provided for you. My expectation is that you track along with the speech. What is my expectation? Track along with the speech. You can choose how you do that. You can track with your finger. You can slide your little bulldog book underneath it. You can use your pencil. Okay? But I want to see your eyes following along. You can put your name on it. Yes, great question. Yeah. Please, everybody, pencil up, put your name on your paper.
If you need a pencil, just raise your hand and I'll bring you one.
Thank you to everybody who was prepared with a pencil today. before we listen to and read this speech, I want to remind you, your exit ticket for today is going to be telling how Steve Jobs, what he learned from failure and how he turned himself into a success. Okay, so what the work you do now is preparing you to master your exit ticket, okay? I also want you to know that before we get to the exit ticket, we're going to have another partner discussion. We're going to describe an event from his speech in which failure led to success. So while we're listening and while we're tracking, we are thinking, where did he take a failure in his life and turn it into a success? Okay? You know what you're looking for? What you looking for, Cavis? You want to phone a friend? You want to ask somebody for help? Okay, pick somebody. Angel? How Steve Jobs turned his failure into success. Some things that failed in his life that led him to success. And they told me I could read it to you, but I thought it just sounded so much better coming straight from the horse's mouth.
Thank you.
Tracking. Tracking.
I'm honored to be with you today for your commencement from one of the finest universities in the world.
What does tracking look like, Jordan, Johnny?
I never graduated from college, and this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation. Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it. No big deal. Just 3 stories. The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of Reed College after the first 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit.
What do you think so far? Think time? Turn to your shoulder partner. This time B goes first. What do you think so far about Steve Jobs?
I already got my mic.
So the first thing you know about him is he's dropping. What does that sound?
He said he kept on wrong.
All right, class. Yes. Before you really, all right. What do you think about Steve Jobs so far? Let me get one share. Johnny, what you got to say?
I'm still trying to think about mine a little bit.
Okay. It's okay to need more think time. That is not a problem. I will come back to you, Johnny. So I expect an answer. Let me hear from Elena. Okay.
I think he said that he dropped out of college. He said he dropped out of college after his first 6 months, probably because of the teachers and stuff told him that he wasn't good enough for it.
He dropped out of college. I asked Akira in the question, so far, are you thinking this man sounds like a success or a failure?
Right now,
Right now, a failure. You're a college dropout. Okay? We were supposed to be listening for evidence of failure in his life. Have you heard an evidence of failure yet? Why don't you go ahead and underline the failures that you hear? That's going to help you when you go back to your discussion. Okay, as we continue forward, I still expect you to be tracking, and I expect you to underline the evidence of failure as it comes through his speech. What are we looking for? Evidence of failure.
So why did I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother was a young, unwed graduate student, and she decided to put me up for adoption. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates, so everything was all set for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife. Except that when I popped out, they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl. So my parents, who were on a waiting list, got a call in the middle of the night asking, "We've got an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him?" They said, "Of course." My biological mother found out later that my mother had never graduated from college and that my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only relented a few months later when my parents promised that I would go to college. This was the start in my life. And 17 years later, I did go to college. But I naively chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford. And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out. And here I was, spending all the money my parents had saved their entire life. So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Thank you for tracking.
The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting. It wasn't all romantic. I didn't have a dorm room, so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night to get one good meal a week at the Hare Krishna temple. I loved it. And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference. My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. And so at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months.
Thank you
I
for
felt that I'd
outlining
let the
evidence of
previous
failure.
generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the Valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still love what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods in my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer animated feature film, Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next, and I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. And Lorene and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle.
Thank you, everybody, for turning pages at the right time. It shows you the track. You're doing a great job.
My third story is about death. When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. The doctors told me this was almost certainly a type of cancer that is incurable, and that I should expect to live no longer than 3 to 6 months. My doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code for prepare to die. It means to try and tell your kids everything. You thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few months. It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes. I lived with that diagnosis all day. Later that evening, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, through my stomach and into my intestines, put a needle into my pancreas and got a few cells from the tumor. I was sedated, but my wife, who was there, told me that when they viewed the cells under a microscope, the doctors started crying because it turned out to be a very rare form of pancreatic cancer that is curable with surgery. I had the surgery, and thankfully, I'm fine now. This was the closest I've been to facing death, and I hope it's the closest I get for a few more decades. Having lived through it, I can now say this to you with a bit more certainty than when death was a useful but purely intellectual concept. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet, death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It's life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now, the new is you. But someday, not too long from now, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it's quite true. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. When I was young, there was an amazing publication called the Whole Earth Catalog, which was one of the Bibles of my generation. It was created by a fellow named Stuart Brand, not far from here in Menlo Park, and he brought it to life with his poetic touch. This was in the late 60s, before personal computers and desktop publishing, so it was all made with typewriters, scissors, and Polaroid cameras. It was sort of like Google in paperback form 35 years before Google came along. It was idealistic, overflowing with neat tools and great notions. Stuart and his team put out several issues of the Whole Earth Catalog, and then, when it had run its course, they put out a final issue. It was the mid-1970s, and I was your age. On the back cover of their final issue was a photograph of an early morning country road, the kind you might find yourself hitchhiking on if you were so adventurous. Beneath it were the words, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." It was their farewell message as they signed off. Stay hungry, stay foolish. And I've always wished that for myself. And now, as you graduate to begin anew, I wish that for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you all very much.
I know, I feel like I want to clap. If y'all want to clap, you can. Wow. That inspired me. I don't know how it made you feel. I can tell that somebody was really listening to the text as it was read, because when he spoke about his cancer diagnosis, several of you went, oh, 36 months ago. And then when we heard about the cure through the surgery, people were like, yes. Okay. I want you to react to the text that you read. It shows that you're engaging. It shows that you're attentive. Okay? We're not just reading to be zombies. Isidro.
Is he still alive?
Yes. What? Is he? Did he pass recently? I didn't check that. I don't know. Yeah, he did pass recently. We'll Google it. Okay, but right now, our job is what we set you up to do. Describe an event from Job's speech in which failure led to success. We're going to start out with partner B. B, you're going to give a time in his life where failure led to success. A, your job is to agree, disagree, and tell why. Okay? Now, did he have more than one failure? Yes. So could you have a different answer? Yes. Let's say that Azia? Oh, Akira, thank you, I'm so sorry. Let's say my partner Akira said one thing, and I said, oh, Akira, I do agree with you. That is a time his failure led to success. But I was thinking about a different time. Let me share my time with you. Is that okay? Yes, that's goal 3, extending the thinking of others. Okay? Ready? Partner B, share your time with partner A. Partner A, agree, disagree, and tell why. Johnny, I want to hear from you. Why don't you sit down with me? You'll be partner B. check back in for they're considered not a
And we needed surgery for that. So
I don't want you to feel pressure. Describe the surgery for the job. He failure led to success. Freeze, eyes on me. Partner A, if you're listening, and partner B does not tell you evidence about the failure, guess what? You have to challenge them. What in the text made you say that? Ready, go. Show me.
So I just had one
Why don't you underline it so you can find it later?
The first was that he decided to drop off and that it will all work out. Okay, it was scary.
And then 17 years later, he did go to college. So there was a failure in a success. He dropped out because he didn't have the norm.
So how did that make him success? You told me about his failure, that he got fired from his own company that he created. How did that help him?
He dropped out because he
This really got my attention. He created the company Pixar. He got kicked out and on to his Toy Story. If he hadn't got fired, because he left a company,
something like that. He had went back to
so I want you to see two parts of that, the failure and how it led to success.
yeah, he had got a white thing. They had a
Would you mind if I shared? You prefer me to do it? Okay. All right, class?
Yes.
How were your discussions? Y'all, I went back and partnered with Johnny because earlier when I asked him a question, he couldn't answer. I just wanted to make sure like he wasn't getting lost. Johnny said one of the most intelligent things I've heard all day. He said, he was talking about in Steve Jobs' second story when he got fired from the company he created. Okay, that's an insult. I made this company and you're gonna fire me? But he said it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened. And Johnny showed me in the text where him getting fired led him to creating the company Next and Pixar. And he said that without that firing, we wouldn't have had Toy Story, okay? And he said, you know what it makes me think of, Miss Fine? It really makes me think of like cause and effect. The failure caused some hard work, which led to success, which is the effect, okay? And that was a really powerful thinking connection. I named him actually a long bucks for that. You may have thought something great too, and I didn't get to hear it, but here's your chance to show me what you think. I'm gonna give you a sheet of loose leaf paper, and your job is to answer this question. How does failure lead to success? That is your inference that you're going to make. Okay? We're going to use the words of Steve Jobs to help us infer what really is the answer to that question. Okay? And then you're going to support it by relevant evidence from his speech. The speech is in front of you. You have that evidence. You've probably already underlined and discussed some evidence that will help you come up with your answer. Really quick, I want to let you know how I'm judging your answer so you know your criteria for mastery. Your inference has to be reasonable based on the evidence. Okay? And then you have to quote evidence from the speech. When you quote, just a reminder, since it's been a minute since 5th grade, it should have 3 parts. Sentence starter, quotation marks, and the evidence. Yes? Okay, so look, it says write a paragraph. I'm not going to tell you how many sentences you need, but I will tell you, you need to answer this question and provide evidence. So that's at least 2. And then you can explain your evidence if you have time. Any questions about what's expected from you? I'm coming around with your paper. As soon as you get it, I want to see your name on the top line. What's the first thing I want to see?
Your name.
And then I also want to see the words core 1.
And the date.
Okay? And the date. Does Ms. Jordan make you do the date? Okay.
But yes, you need the date on there.
Name, date, and core 1. So she knows which block you belong to. Name, date, core 1. Your questions are on the board. Your criteria is on the board.
You want us to write the questions too?
You do not have to write the questions because we have those in our lesson plan. I'm giving you 6 minutes to start. Just kidding, that was a bad idea. Now you can't answer the question. I have mine, but I just kind of wanted to see what it was. If you are stuck, think about how you would answer that question if your partner asked it to you. What would you say? Write just exactly what you would say out of your mouth. You're just communicating it with your pencil. Luckily, Elena's digging into her evidence, so is Jalen, so is Anaya. quotation marks around your evidence. Time is about halfway up. Make sure you have evidence to support your inference. Make sure you are quoting from the text. Seconds. Finish up whatever thoughts you're on. Okay, finish whatever sentence you're in the middle of writing and then put your pencil down, please. I want to give you a second to check your work for the criteria before you have time to turn it in. This is an opportunity for you to reflect on the quality of what you have written, okay? The first criteria for mastery aligns with making the inference. Your inference needs to be relevant and reasonable. I'm thinking earlier in class when Dalen was our model of how to make an inference. He came up here and made his stank face, right? It would not be relevant for me to say that he looked happy. Check your answer to this question. How does failure lead to success? Find it in your work and underline it. As you underline it, I want you to read and think, does my answer make sense to this question? If so, take a breath. If not, make a change. And one last thing I want you to check for. Look at your evidence. Put a star next to where your evidence starts. As you put that star, read your evidence and make sure that it matches or supports the answer that you just underlined. Once that is done, you may take your paper and place it in the center of your table. Pack up the speech. You will need it later in the unit. Do not lose it. And I'm going to turn you back over to Ms. Jordan for directions for lining up for lunch. You guys have been an excellent class, and I have enjoyed engaging and teaching and learning with you. Will y'all welcome me back another day? Yes. Thank you.
Go ahead and stack your work in the middle of the table from the spine or something up. If you can hear my voice, talk more.
There's the criteria.